Are you looking for an escape from manufactured truth wrapped in selfish agenda? Don't you just want to have a real and raw conversation, all masks and rules aside? That's what you're getting here at Titan Evolution Podcast. Get rid of all the nonsense information and discuss everything under the sun without filters. Listen to real stories of real people who will put your current perspectives to the test, guide you on living the life you truly want, and see everything free from judgment and pretenses. Time to get rid of those unhealthy environments and let your authentic self shine. Here are your hosts, Travis Johnson and Carol Carpenter.
Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm here with my co-host, Carol Carpenter, and our guest, Aileda Lindal. Aileda, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, thanks.
Aileda has been personally invited to the White House to give her opinion on international trade agreements. She has experience working in global markets, and we may or may not talk about how she can visualize organizations at the micro and macro level, whatever the hell that means. You just got up to like the Pacific Northwest. You flew in specifically for this show.
I
But
did.
we don't do it in person now.
I flew in specifically to meet Carol in person, so there's that.
Yeah. If you're watching the video right now, you can see how they're absolutely not in person together. So it worked out really well for the both of you. You've been like
we're seeing each other tomorrow. Come on, Travis.
I'm just saying you're not together right now, but you are, but you're not.
We're together in spirit.
For sure.
Oh!
I mean, trouble for you, Trav.
I don't think it's going to be trouble for me because let's be honest, I'm never in trouble.
Oh, bullshit.
This is the Titan Evolution podcast. We're talking about Titan shit, and I got to know what makes you a Titan.
Oof. I know. That was my response when you said it a few minutes ago, and I'm like, it's still the same response. I'm like, woof, what does make me a Titan? I would say like your life story, right? So everybody has a life story, and let's just view that as maybe like our obstacle course in life.
I don't want to know about everyone. I want to know about you specifically. It's a hard question. A lot of people don't think of themselves as the amazing beings that they are. It's a hard question to answer. What makes you specifically? How do you get invited to the White House? That might be Titan worthy, huh?
I mean, it was fun.
I mean,
It was fun.
You're downplaying it. Come on, tell us the story.
Why are you badass? Let's hear it.
Okay. So I went into an organization. The whole goal was to grow and expand international side of the business. It was an incredible amount of research. And when I don't know something, like I dig. And so I researched like crazy and made a tremendous amount of connections with all the right people in Denver. And then began to be connected with people around the world, and then was having really just amazing conversations about trade and regulations and, what it's like for America to be trying to trade with these other countries, and each one having its own different dynamic. And so it was pretty cool. When I got the invite, there was 50 organizations, all different industries, but it was fascinating sitting there with the White House, like senators and your Congress and, your representatives, and being able to ask them questions in regards to, all of the ins and outs of international trade. It was also very eye-opening that they're no different than you or I. And there's questions sometimes that they can't answer. And, it's like, it's a thing.
Well, Carol, where were you the last time you sat around a table and were talking about international trade?
Like fucking never.
Never. Yeah. Oh yeah, we were just all sitting around talking about international trade. People don't just do that, Aileda. They don't just like, you want to go to have coffee and talk about international trade? Like that just
at the White House. Yeah,
I know. I'm a geek. It's a thing. It's real.
But no, it's not geekish. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely amazing. And she's like, when I just don't know something, I just dig and dig and dig. So like, you're not satisfied with the status quo. You want to know what the real answer is, and you fight for that. And that kind of level of dedication got you into the fucking White House.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, believe it. Dear
There
God,
you
we wouldn't have
go.
you on here if we didn't think you were worthy.
Yeah, no joke.
You act like we just
Yeah.
put the link out to everybody.
I mean,
Yeah, everybody gets invited to the White House, Yeah, that's a normal thing. No, dear.
No.
okay. Well, it was cool. Yeah, it was cool.
It was okay.
And at least I was like, hey, that's security to get into the White House. Like, now we know. Yeah.
But I bet you it was cool to realize, hey, these guys also don't have all the answers. I mean, they're just like you and I,
Yeah, Carol, it was very insightful in that aspect of things. Very. Yeah, I guess I anticipated being able to have the answers, like, being able to have the answers.
Like closure, like some kind of closure to those answers, but to find out that you didn't it's kind of like, well, shit, that was anticlimactic, right? Like here's where I thought I was going to get answers, and now I'm not getting any. And what the heck?
Yeah. It was anticlimactic for everybody in the room because I was more strategic about the questions, right? And so everybody was asking pertaining to their specific industry because everybody has specialized trade needs, right?
Sure.
But when it came around to me, I remember I had something and I was like, well, I'm going to ask this because it's going to resonate with everyone. Every single person in this room needs the answer to this one, right? And so I remember asking, and it was like back and forth shuffle and in and out of the room a few times and trying to get the answer. And then we got a really generic response.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people don't know how it works, right? They bring in the experts because they really don't know. They really don't have all the answers, and they're willing to admit that, which is something that's pretty interesting. We're not living under a dictatorship, even though sometimes we might feel like it. Yeah. There are people like you and I, they get elected to positions and they don't have the answers. So they bring in the experts, apparently, like ask Aileda. Oh, let's get her to the White House. Yeah, we definitely got to ask her here. Right? She doesn't believe she's a Titan. Well, we're going to convince her while she's on the show how amazing she is. Okay. If she don't believe it now, I don't know what else we do. I mean, we might even not publish this episode if you don't believe it. I mean, come on.
Wow. I know, right? Bomb in the middle of the conversation, Travis.
Who is he?
I'm all hopped up on caffeine. I had a handful of Oreos. I'm drinking Dr. Pepper. What do you want?
Oh my God, no.
Bad combo, man. In the future, no more Oreos and sugar.
So I hung out with Carol and an amazing group of people for a week in Texas, and I went on a road trip, and I was going to go swing by South Carolina, Charleston, and see Aileda. And she's like, oh, sorry, I thought you were more flexible. I have to fly to New York, and now they were on the show. She's not in her place. She's flown up to Washington State to hang out with some people just because she can. And she's like, well, I'm not really a Titan. What? Like, I don't know how you would define that if you don't believe you are one.
I mean, I'm humble.
Own it.
No, we're not talking about humble. We're not pretending here. You are who you are.
Probably one of the coolest, most amazing Titan things I've ever done in my entire life was being a single mom of two amazing, beautiful kids. And gone through processes with each of them. They were 4.5 years apart. But it was one thing that I was always mindful about was that job in my life and the importance of it. And thank heavens that I had enough sense about me, right? And kind of like grew up myself quickly, realizing, wow, like everything I do is going to impact their lives. That was pivotal.
See,
well, it's not just your children. I mean, this relates into business. Like everything you do affects the people around you. So in a sense, you kind of got a taste of it in being a parent. And I think it's an incredible journey when you're a parent, because I don't know about you, but I had my kids young. And so I grew with them and I learned a lot in that process. And I became a better human being because of them. And it's so funny that you have these little guys, for me, it was 2 boys, and for you, it was 2 girls, I'm assuming. These 2 human beings actually taught me so much. And it's it's unlike anything else you've ever experienced if you haven't had kids, folks. I mean, I know there are people that are allergic to having kids, and that's okay too, but there is a process, and you don't realize how much you sacrifice. Like, people use the word sacrifice in almost a disposable way. But as a parent, you truly sacrifice for your children,
Yeah.
And in a way, this translates into business, because at the end of the day, people are like, yeah, I do all this stuff for my business, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, yeah, but until you're a parent, you understand what real sacrifice is. You are just moving your time for business. That's not and yes, that's a sacrifice in itself, but it's not the same.
Yeah,
So it's interesting.
It's not the same. The people that say, well, I have fur babies, look, they are not the same as having kids.
Okay, dude, you cannot leave out food and water for your children and then expect them to be okay.
There's just a dispenser, and then you crack the door to the backyard. Like, that's not how it works. There's like laws protecting kids. I mean, there's laws protecting kids too. It's not the same. How old are your babies now?
So I was going to say, this is a good topic right now too, because this is a hot topic for, like, not a hot topic. It's been bubbling up with my girls recently. Right. And so the whole baby and, wow, do I want to be a mom and that kind of stuff. And neither one of them know if they want to have children. My oldest is 31. My youngest is 26.
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
You do not look like you could have a 31-year-old.
Thanks.
That is a compliment. Yeah, you didn't have to pause. That's a compliment.
Yeah,
Thank you, Carol, for your compliment.
no,
Really
so
appreciate it.
I'm like, thank you. Like, yeah.
I was just waiting for the
Well,
joke. I was like, yeah, she's
I
just
say
lying.
it like that because I look at her and I'm like, I'm sure it's like absolutely 1000% the same in your situation, yeah, with your kids. It's like, again, when you have them young too, it's just a thing, but they keep you young. I mean, I always found, right. And I love having children because they keep me young. That's a huge thing right now. Back to the tough topic, they don't know if they want to have children. And so people are like, whoa, like, are you okay with that? Are you okay with that? And I'm like, I am okay with that.
That's their choice. I mean, if they choose they choose not to have children, that's their choice. Now,
correct.
Who said that you have to have children? And why is there so much pressure to have children? There's plenty of people procreating like crazy that shouldn't have them. Sorry, that came out.
Oh,
sorry. That's a real thing. Like, a lot of ladies I know lose their identity because as soon as they're to whatever mythical age that their parents start, saying, oh, when are you going to get to be with someone? When are you going to get, or you're with somebody, oh, well, when are you going to get engaged? And I'm like, I just met this dude. Like, what do you get engaged? And you're like, oh, when's the day? When are you getting married? As soon as you're married, you're like, well, when are you having kids? Can I just be me?
Yeah.
Is that how you all feel? Did you get the same kind of like?
There was pressure. Yeah. Huge pressure. Did you experience that, Aileda? When you got married, were people like, oh my God, now when are you going to have kids? There was so much pressure to have kids that it was like, we couldn't have them right away. And it sucked. And people were volunteering their husbands to get me pregnant because my husband couldn't get me pregnant, quickly. It was bad.
That sounds like a whole other story right there.
That's intense. I mean, that is intense. Seriously.
It was super intense. Like, that was huge pressure.
Yeah.
So back again to your daughters. It's a choice.
Why does the topic come up as a hot topic for your kids, whether they do or do not want to have kids right now? What prompted that?
Social.
That's the thing, is that then it brings me to the point where I'm like, okay, like they know, they talk to me openly and honestly because they know they can, they know like their mom's not going to freak out and I'm going to be, but my only question is, okay, but just, can I ask why? And they're like, we don't feel good about the way things are in the world. Like, we don't feel good about it. We just don't, we don't know. And they also are practical and realistic, Carol, about the sacrifice, you know what I mean? And they are assessing consciously and making decisions. And so when my oldest shared that with me just a couple of months ago, we were sitting on my back deck in South Carolina, she was visiting, and we were having that conversation. I said, look, then that means I have a job to do, because I need to write this fucking book, clearly, and get it out into the world. Because if that's how my kids are feeling, and I'm also hearing other people share with me in conversation that their children are feeling the same way, then we got a real fucking problem on our hands.
Yeah. Oh, heck yeah.
Like, it's time to change some things. It's time to change some things.
Yeah. Our own children aren't feeling good about the world and our society and where they see things going. It's scary, you know, and does it keep them from, when they meet the right person, wanting to have children? I mean, yeah.
My oldest has been married for 5 years. They're a beautiful couple. They literally have like everything. Like, when I say that, I mean, like, you know, they've got the beautiful home, they've got the property. Most importantly, they've got that connection with each other and teamwork, and they have this synergy that is on fire. You know what I mean? And so, like, they consciously have these conversations and make these choices together in their life, and everything is teamwork. Everything is teamwork. And they're gonna, I mean, they're super blessed. They're gonna be retiring in a couple of years. And then she's like, wow, like, what next? Right. But I mean, she's doing, you know, the upside down, the aerobatic, whatever, with the silks, Carol.
Oh,
you know,
that's
like,
super cool.
So now she's like experimenting. She's like, okay, well, if I didn't, and she does doggy daycare, and that was like always her passion. So both of my girls are entrepreneurs. They're monkey see, monkey do. She has a doggy daycare business. She got sick and tired of, she was working underneath the VP of her organization, and they rotated leadership for a third time. She was like, fuck this, I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm out of here. Her husband said, what do you want to do, babe? And she said, I want to have a doggy daycare on our property.
Puppies.
And got the permits, made the magic happen. She has 20 large breed dogs out here every single day for her babies.
Oh my gosh. And guess what?
This all just falls in the sink. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what's so great about it is, like, you get to like foster them essentially, you know, through the doggy daycare, and you get to know them and love them, and then you get to send them home. It's like being the babysitter. That's it.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Yeah. And they love it because she also trains, and, you know, and so it's just like, it's perfect. And she started her first doggy training business when she was 10 around the neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
She got her first one AKC certified. So, I mean, go figure. And she's 31. So, I mean, that's how that magic happened. My little one is a photographer and has had her photography business since she was 15, and she's 26 now. She's good. She's really good. But yeah, she was diagnosed with ADHD when she was 10, and I refused to medicate her, and immediately, right? So this goes into mindset. So I'm like heavy mindset coach. Carol is like my forte, right? And so she automatically went into this, like, I heard a diagnosis, and so I'm embodying this now, and I'm accepting this about myself. And I was like, I was like, let me tell you right now, it's a gift. And you can sit over there and you can pretend like it's not, but you know what I'm saying to you. And you know that I know that you can focus on anything that you love, just like anybody else on the face of this planet. But you have to love it, like really love it, right?
Exactly. I have a son that was diagnosed with ADHD. Same thing. But if you gave him something he loved, guess what? He could spend hours focused on a puzzle. So he wouldn't even, like, literally would never leave it until it was completed. And he would do these intricate, like, 3D puzzles where I'm like looking at him going, dude, you're like from another planet. And he was young when he was doing it. So the teachers would send home these puzzles the other kids couldn't figure out, because he would spend hours. But if it didn't interest him, if it was too easy for him, it was like, oh God, you want to murder the child. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hear you.
Yeah.
Completely hear you. So let me ask you a question. Like, when you, obviously you were a young mom, because we've discussed this, but when they were young, was this the current business that you're in? Was this something that you were in, or did you start off as something else and then you pivoted, or?
Oh yeah, definitely pivoted. I mean, I was in corporate America working my ass off because, like, what are you gonna do? Like, now I gotta like be an example for these children that I brought into the world, right? And so if I have to work and I can't be the full-time nurturer and I have to be out in the world full time, then I better be excelling. I better be advancing in every aspect in every single way, so that they can have that benefit of seeing me, do that and be an achiever and know they could have it for themselves, that they would never need to worry about whether or not they were capable of taking care of themselves. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what would you say was the moment that you decided to pivot and change to what you're currently doing? Because you're a coach, correct?
Yeah, it was my ADHD child turning 12-ish, 12, 13. And she was a handful and a pistol and like wanted attention and again, bored and whatever, right? And so, yeah, I was like, okay, now I have to run and toggle different schedules too, because now I've got like sports going on and I've got this, my schedule, and I'm the solo, right? So like my schedule has to accommodate everything. And so, yeah, it was just, strategic planning and preparation and like, okay, that's like, this has to happen.
And
So,
was this something that you had a passion for, which
for sure.
caused? Okay.
For sure. So I love quantum physics, right? And epigenetics and neuroscience. Those are my top 3 loves. So when we talk about following passions, my little one also followed her passion with her photography. I followed my passion with then my love of those 3 topics. Interestingly enough, I was having a conversation the other day and it occurred to me, I was like, wow, pretty interesting that I have the fascination that I do with neuroscience, because I hadn't really linked it to the fact that my mom suffered brain damage when I was 10. So I'm like, interesting. She was in a really bad Carol motorcycle accident, oddly enough.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, you get motorcycles, so you get it. But
Yeah.
yeah, she wasn't wearing a helmet and she hit the pavement, and my mom was maybe 100 pounds. And then she skid about 20 feet and suffered a skull fracture. And so it was like very touch and go there for a long minute. Like, is she even going to make it?
Public service announcement, all gear, all the time. And that's what we preach.
For sure. Yeah. 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 And this was, like this was just the road. They were out on the open road, not motocross. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter because you just never know when these things are going to happen.
For sure. Clearly. 1000%. You just don't. Yeah.
Yeah, you're in a car, you're like, oh, everyone's just gonna kind of follow the rules. You're on a bike, you're like, look, everyone is trying to kill you. No one's paying attention if you're not looking out for you. You have to be on the whole time. There's not a whole lot of time where you can have a casual bike ride.
Well, there is, though. I mean, you can have a casual bike ride if you are very knowledgeable and skilled already, because a portion of your focus can be enjoying the view, which is why you're there. It's such a visceral sport, right? But you also have to be geared. If you're geared, you can alleviate some of that focus, to doing the enjoyable part. But honestly, we ride like we're invisible. And I treat it that way, like nobody can see me, because I can't tell you how many times, and it's almost every single ride on the street that I do, that somebody tries to do something to kill me. And it's no fault of their own. It's sad that we have, well, they don't hear you, they don't see you. Yeah, because they're distracted. And we are living in a society of distraction, and I see them on their phones. And I wish we could like ping it into them. Maybe we I think I did a podcast with Otis and his son Cam. And I go, it would be really nice if we could, along with driver education, do rider education and put kids on dirt bikes and show them what it's like. And actually, you would be a better driver if you rode a bike, because what you learn is entry, apex, and exits through corners. And what happens is most kids are fine down the straight, even in a car. But the minute they have to take a corner, they don't know how to approach a corner. We approach corners very, technically and methodically. And so if they could learn that, they would actually be better drivers. We'd have less accidents. Probably the insurance companies, wouldn't make as much money, so they couldn't gouge us as much, right? So that would be great. Yeah. Okay. I said it out loud. It's out there now.
Insurance companies. So because I used to ride, I had a cruiser, a Suzuki, not a sport bike like you've got. I taught my kids how to play, instead of playing punch buggy or slug bug, we played motorcycle slap. They would get to like slap each other and every time. So they're always looking out for motorcycles when they were in the car with us. So you would just see her, so I was like, motorcycle slap, and I reached back and hit my son in the leg or whatever. He's like, Dad, that's not fair. You can see him before I can see him. I was like, I got to be looking ahead though. You guys have the opportunity to look at the sides,
you guys got peripheral.
all this stuff. So they're like scanning parking lots, trying to find whatever, so they could just reach over. And it wasn't like violent, right? It wasn't slug bug when you're teenagers and you're just like, get in there as much. It was just like and now my son's like, he's like, Dad, I don't like the motorcycle. He's like, I like Camaros, so we play Camaro slap now. He's like, Camaro slap, like driving through the neighborhood. But it's not them just buried in their phones. It's not them just, are we there yet?
Exactly.
So they're engaged while we're driving around, seeing their environment. I'm not letting them slack. Well, I don't know if it's like some of the time, like really like longer road trips, but going across town, like, hey, phone's down. I don't want to let, when you start getting them 3 or 4 times, they're like, fine, I guess I'll pay attention now. And they start paying attention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay. You were saying something about your mom that at that point triggered a change.
Possibly in regards to my fascination with the brain.
Oh.
Right.
You mentioned quantum physics, epigenetics, neuroscience.
And I love, like our brain is our computer, really. Like, there's just like no two ways about it. They're slicing and dicing in neuroscience the brain as fast as they can because they're creating the latest AI quantum computers after our brain, which is fascinating. So then, conscious awareness, that just came up like ping-ponging back and forth between the two of you a couple of times now. And the statistics are that they're putting out, they're saying that it's like 5% of the time the populace is conscious, 5. And the other 95% of the time people are in repeat programs. That means your computer is running itself, right? Instead of the spirit being present. So conscious awareness being present moment awareness. That's when your spirit's on board, right? Mm-hmm. That's when you can tell your body what to do. You can tell your mind what to do, right? Mind then controls the body. And I do think my love for that probably does stem from that instance.
So how did you incorporate all those items together to do what you are now doing then? Because I mean, you're talking about a scientific thing more towards a spiritual thing too. So how are you embodying both of those to do what you're doing?
Yeah, I walk my talk. So I'm not saying by any means that I'm perfect, but I walk my talk very with a lot of precision, like you do your motocross with a lot of precision, right? And so, it's important. It's vitally important. And so for me, that's like saying, well, we're really not using our brain at all. And so conscious awareness is the present place where free will takes place, right? That's the freedom. When free will, you can make a different choice. You can make a different decision. You're overwriting old programs, and neuroplasty is a thing, and you rewrite new programs. and you have new neural pathways, and all of that is possible, and it does develop. I've also like medically worked with people who have suffered massive strokes and massive heart attacks and rehabbed back, people where they thought it would never, like, it's impossible, like literally it's impossible. So I'm like, well, then I've personally witnessed medical miracles, which is also epic, you know?
Right.
Right.
So we gotta unpack this stuff, because you've been in it for years now. It's very plain. You understand, you're onboarding it. Like quantum physics is kind of the thought that things can happen across all times at the same time. You can affect things in the past and in the future from something that happens now. Epigenetics is we have a genetic code where we can turn on and off genes, and that's one of the big things that was a problem with COVID. It was the first corona type virus that could turn on and off genes. This is why it was such a big problem. Neuroscience and neuroplasty is where you have the control and the ability to create and rewire new pathways within the brain. So we mentioned running most of our life on autopilot, right? Once you learn how to tie your shoes the first couple of times, 10, 20 times, it's a pain in the ass to tie your shoe. You're like hanging the button and it goes around and you got to pull it. Like, it's impossible when you're learning it. But as soon as you got it, you nail it, you tie your shoes the same way. You never think anymore. You took that thing that was hard to learn, you put it on autopilot so your brain doesn't have to actively think. We do this with brushing teeth. We learn this as we're driving. We're learning how to drive. It's a pain in the ass. Motorcycles, entry, apex, and exit. Like, we have to learn all these things specifically, and then the better you get, the more practice you are, the easier it becomes. Like when I ride my bike, I don't have to think about it. I know exactly where I'm lining up, how I'm going to dip into it, what speed to be, when I'm going to roll on the throttle and out the like, that's all under our programming. So how do you, people in our day-to-day lives that are stuck on the hamster wheel, that are running on all their programs on auto, how do they snap back to reality? Oh, there goes gravity. Oh, I'm not going to rap. How do you pull yourself into the present, get off the hamster wheel, get off of those programs so you can really be conscious, not just 5% of the time, but all the time?
Yeah. So when I'm coaching with people, I really pay attention to their word choices, and that's usually the number one place I start. Epigenetics, Travis, just to touch on that quickly, is an ailment in the body that presents itself, and there's research that's been done. I have an encyclopedia from somebody who went through the foster care system, right, and was a PhD psychologist in the foster care system. He was the person working with these children, right? And so they recorded and they logged for like lifetimes, right? And there's certain behavioral and emotional things that can get stuck in the body and or become a physical problem. And it's like right there in this book. And it's amazing because every time I've heard somebody say, oh, I've got this, or oh, my knee, or whatever, right? While I'm in conversation with them, I'm like, interesting. So I'll open the book and I'm like, and then I'll share it with them, right? I'll say, hey, by the way, I use this as part of my coaching. Let me just send you this page and see, what do you think? Do you think that any of this could apply? And if so, then we're probably going to coach around that. And within a couple of weeks, it's gone. Well, and then I always come back and I touch. I'm like, okay, so now
you talk about a specific example from a client, not a name. We're not interested in that stuff. But you said they say this, and then you just kind of went on to your next thing. What do you mean, like, for an example?
So like a young woman was having trouble with her hips and was talking about how, like, my hips are off and they're out of place and they're out of, like, I feel like I'm out of socket, needing to go to a chiropractor. That would be one thing.
So describing an ailment that they have without it identifying.
Yeah, because you know how people have a tendency to just share their ailments. Like, it's a thing in society, right? So everybody is like, oh, and sometimes
my back hurts.
Sometimes, you'll even hear people like almost compete with it, right? Like, who's worse off?
Who's
and
got
so
it worse?
Please don't do that to yourselves. I'm like, no. I'm like, just don't, right? Like, just don't. Just come over here, because again, there's endless possibilities in a quantum field. So why would we not put in that space? because
So
that's
they
the
say their
variables.
hip is hurt or disjointed. You go to your resource document where it talks about
It'll say like
that
when I
ailment.
look at hip problems, right? Is it right hip? Is it left hip? Whatever it is, right? And is it an ache or is it a deep-seated pain? Is it a stabbing pain? There's all kinds of different things that could apply. And then it can get pretty specific with most physical ailments. And so
Look,
I've never shared it. I'll share it with you, Carol. I've never I don't have it here with me. So the reason
What's
why
it
I say
called?
that Messages of the Body.
Oh my God, I have the book.
Lincoln, Michael J. Lincoln.
I have the book.
Do you have the
It's a
encyclopedia?
fucking novel.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's,
And so you
most
name the
amazing-
ailment. Yeah.
the most
Yeah,
amazing research you'll
So
ever.
crazy. Do you want me to grab it? It's in the other room, but I can grab it and I can. Yeah, hang on. Okay, so I'm going to take my video off for just a second. I'll grab it and I'll come
Sure.
back.
Okay.
Go ahead, keep talking.
Yeah. Talk to me, Travis.
So I've got this back pain,
Lower.
which is
Mama
true. Diagnosed scoliosis. It's like mid back pain. I have to sleep like on a wedge. I had to sleep in a certain position so I don't wake up in excruciating pain. It took me almost 10 years to figure out how I could find a way to sleep that didn't cause me pain all day. So is there
Wow.
like a thing in a book where we flip to it and it's going to walk me through how to fix
She
it?
has the book.
Messages of the Body. There it is. Don't
Yeah.
drop that on your toe. Good Lord.
Oh my gosh, it's pretty
That's an
hefty.
encyclopedia.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
I mean, the government
phenomenal.
pays for a huge portion of the research, of course. Just
Yeah,
so you know.
it says messages from the body, their psychological meaning.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So
It-
epigenetics, to bring us back full circle, is literally the ability to, once you release those things. So Carol, when you were talking about, oh my gosh, like the crying, we were talking about like it's a cleanse and it's a purge and it's healing.
Mhm.
And then once that happens, then like really it's a healing, like truly it's healing on a physical level. It's a
Yeah,
healing.
we shouldn't suppress those feelings because then it becomes internalized and it affects everything within the body.
It does. And so another fun fact, I was, gosh, I don't even know, years ago, I'm going to say probably 2008. I participated in a government study in Colorado. They were using a wand and I was fascinated by this. I'm like, oh, let me see the latest technology and like, what are they experimenting with now? Right. And so I'm like, sure, I'll do it. And they wand your body, just took it. And that was back then. So imagine what the technology is now. Just took this wand up your body and then you could see blocked energy within the energy field of your body and would show up on their computer screen. And I was
That's
like,
fascinating.
I've seen this
Fascinating,
before on Star Trek. They use a tricorder and
Exactly.
they go up.
Really, dude.
well,
Really?
I mean, we are in the Matrix. So there's that. I mean,
There is no
conscious
stone.
pill is consciousness is red pill, right?
Yeah,
Subconscious mind is blue pill.
I know.
Well,
what you're
you
thinking.
want to know something? Like acupuncture does the same thing. I mean,
Acupuncture is amazing.
Yeah. So I see an acupuncturist every couple of weeks. And I remember when I first started doing it, the very first thing I felt, and I never felt anything like it before, right? Because I had a bunch of issues. They take your pulse, they look at your tongue, right? And then they assess your
TCM,
energy.
right? Traditional Chinese medicine.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it was so interesting when she would put the needles in, it would be super painful. And I was like, holy crap.
When you know you really have work to do, like those needles are really gonna like do a thing, right?
Right. Well, and it was clear the blocked energy within that meridian, right?
Sure.
But then they leave you to rest. After they put all the needles in, they leave you to rest. And I remember the very first time I did it, I could feel the needles vibrating.
Yeah.
And it freaked me out. And so me, who's Chinese, was against doing anything from my culture. And I'm not joking you, I did not want to do it. And I was just shy of going into surgery. And so I said, as a last ditch effort, I'm going to go do
Most people will try what works.
Right. One more thing, just one more thing, right? it ended up healing me. And not just healing me as in putting a Band-Aid over a wound. It healed me from the core, the base, the foundation of it.
Energy.
And it changed me 100%.
Yeah, it's your energetic physical field. Everything is energy, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Travis. I just completely just like steamrolled over you.
I don't feel interrupted.
She just like motocrossed, right?
I don't feel interrupted in the slightest. I was like, why are we not talking about Aileda and like her thing and her journey and her path? And I'm like, what the heck? She's like totally dodging this stuff. And now like I'm really interested in talking about traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture and neuroscience. I'm like, I guess we want to talk about Aileda today. We're going to talk about this cool shit. Might as well.
Well, but it's all energy.
It's all part of who I am, right?
Yeah.
It's a part of the path. It's part of what took me into these places of fascination. So we'll take it back. Let's take it back to my mom again. So my mom and dad had divorced right before the accident occurred. And so that was a pivot in our lives. And so we already had this great big bomb kind of blow up. And then my grandmother wound up moving in with my mom and I. And that was literally, and I mean literally, my saving grace. We were in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home, and we shared a 10 by 10 room, and we had twin beds, me and my grandma. And so she became my nanny. And she didn't drink, she didn't cuss, she didn't smoke, she didn't swear, she didn't speak ill of another person, literally like believed in living your life as close to sainthood as you possibly can. And that still is the strongest, most powerful representation still yet to this day of anyone I've ever seen, like living it. And so I'm like, okay, she was pretty badass and amazing. And she also had a good sense of humor, Travis. So there's that. So so then the accident happened, and then my mom winds up marrying the douchebag that she was in the accident with. Well, I'm 10 at this time, right? So fast forward, this is like 3 years after the divorce. Then we're kind of getting settled, life starting to kind of like balance out again. And then all of a sudden, bam, the accident. So they don't, again, I'm 10. So I'm like, they're not talking to me about, hey, here's her x-rays or here's her, like, I don't know what's happening. I still, to this day, I look back and I'm like, man, I wish I had those records, right? Because now with what.
Oh, yeah. How old were you when all this happened?
I was 10 when the accident. So come to find out, long story short, the asshole who married her went in a court of law for the accident, and that's why he wound up.
So she wouldn't sue.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I'm a kid in this situation. I don't know any of this shit is going on. You know?
Yeah, that's so
like this guy is the biggest asshole on the face of the planet. How you need to upgrade? You need to upgrade. It's time.
It's upgraded. You can tell that the whole neighborhood like got back home and the system's being stressed.
God. Is that what happened? Seriously?
I have no idea. It just it just shut down and it was spinning. It's still recording. I don't know what's going on. Laura Lee, please fix this for us. Thank you. Left off hearing that she married the biggest asshole.
Oh man, yeah.
Okay, so wait, can I ask? She was on a motorcycle. Was he in a car?
No. She was riding on a motorcycle with him. She was the passenger.
Oh, she was two up. She was the passenger. Okay.
She was the passenger. Yeah.
Okay. Ooh.
Yeah.
That's no good. Was this was not a boyfriend at the time, I'm assuming?
It was a boyfriend at the time. Yes.
Okay.
Like they had been dating, but everybody was kind of like, I mean, so I told you guys about my sweet, adorable grandmother. Well, when she refers to him as a pig, you know, that's horrific coming out of her mouth. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Horrific.
Because she would never say an ill thing about anybody.
because she was a saint. Yes, a cute little saint. Yes. I was like, Grandma, how he made my grandma say that word.
She calls him a pig. You're in complete shock. Like, oh, I can't believe Grandma just said that.
Yeah, the whole family was, right? Like, yeah, on my mom's side, right? My mom's our Italian side of the family. And so, like, in a lot of ways, to the outside world, my mom would seem fine. Like, if you didn't know my mom prior, you would not even know that there was change, because she could still communicate totally fine, everything. But she is different in a lot of ways, like after that, because of lobe damage. So it's fascinating. Yeah. So then I became like my mom's mom, in a lot of ways, not always, but in a lot of ways. Yeah.
A lot of responsibility for you too, as a young person, coming into the world on their own, and you have this responsibility where you are now kind of the mom. I mean, you had to take over some of those responsibilities.
Yeah, I did. I became responsible very young. And my grandmother, Pat, had gone back home right after the marriage occurred, and she passed away. So then it was kind of like, okay, well, now here's my cards, right? And so now, and then my dad was a gambler and a drinker and an amazing business guy. Like, he was super, super smart when it came to business. But for whatever reason, he had that personality type that he had to plummet in order to want to then be a superhero again. And when I mean like superhero, like, it was like crazy how fast he could bounce out of the cellar and like back into the clouds. You know what I mean? Financially, it was mind blowing sometimes. But yeah. And so I was like, okay, I got this. Like, I could I can be with this person, this situation or this situation. Like, geez, okay, here we go. Game on, life.
Yeah. So then at what age would you say that you were just kind of like, yeah, I'm freaking done with this. I'm going to go out on my own and venture out on my own, because it's like this roller coaster ride, right?
Yeah, it was 18. I had to wait until I was 18 because my mom always threatened me that she would have me brought back. And at the time in the state of Colorado, that was like a thing, and you could. And so it was, I for sure just was like, I had to stay in the situation. So I just worked. I worked really hard during my summers, and I saved, and I already had everything I needed to move out the moment I turned 18. And I was like, I'm out of here. Like, I'm out, so out. But my thought process was that I would bring my mom with me eventually, yeah, I mean, that's at 18, what you think. But then it was like, well, I don't know what's going on inside that brain of hers, but there seems to be an element of contentment to a degree, and or depression that there's no way she's ever going to let me get her diagnosed for. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So tell us like what you're doing currently.
Currently, most recent, I came through COVID with a group of practitioners in New York City. So they contracted me like 6 weeks before COVID hit, and we were just starting team development on their multiple organizations. And thank God that we were, because 6 weeks, I mean, they were still so just finger pointers, gossipers, like no concept of team whatsoever, medical, and doctors don't know business, right? And so it was a freaking shit show and a half.
You can't tell me about business. I'm a doctor. What does that have to do with getting people in the door?
Yeah.
No, the doctors, they know that they don't know business. You know what I'm saying? They know they don't know it. So
Some
it was
do,
literally,
but they're not willing to ask or get advice on how to make the business stuff work.
true. Some are not, and they
Yeah.
never will be. But it's a shame because they lose, I mean, if I can say, fuck ton of money. If they don't know business, they lose a fuck ton of money. And I now know all the intricacies after going through COVID, because I was like, where's this at? Where's that at? I go in and I can quickly dissect a company. So I was trained to do that. I worked for a group of private entrepreneurs for a period of about 5 years at one point in my career. And so I can go in and I can say, give me all of these reports. Let me see everything. I can quickly dissect and assess, and I know, right? And so
you can dissect what and assess what, like the health and state of the business, where the pitfalls are, what the problems are.
Gaps, yes. And where are we lacking efficiency? Where can you increase the income? Where can you cut expenses? Like, what do they know? What do they not know? How did they organize and design the infrastructure of their organization? And it was like crazy cakes. So I'm just getting my head around all of this. And then boom, here comes COVID pandemic. And so the doctors go racing into the ERs because they're super badass, heartfelt individuals, and they just went straight in and they didn't come out. Like, it was crazy. Mayhem. And so, I just got that team to hold focus, and we shot them out, and we put telehealth in place, and we did HIPAA compliance. And back then it was like you could use FaceTime. Like, they were changing the laws to meet the needs of the pandemic, that it was ever changing, and they weren't necessarily thinking all the way through. And then they would come back later and write in all the we forgot to say this, or we forgot to say
probably
that.
Not a good idea. We should probably do this.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, obviously patient safety is important, right? We need to have that whether they require it or not. You could get a Burger King employee to stick a swab up somebody's nose. I'm like, that's a little too close to the brain. Like, why are you going to let just anybody test just anybody, right? And so the urgent care side, the owners of the urgent care side of the business said, no, this is why we're here. We're staying open. That's the purpose of what we do. And we're going to stay open for the public. And so that literally the team's dropping like flies and having to go home and get well and meet the mandates of you can't come back into work until 10, 12 days, whatever at the time, and it was just crazy. And then urgent care, we built out field teams, because then Como changed the laws and said, okay, now the nursing home staff has to be tested twice a week. Okay. And he says, I got 12 nursing homes signed up. 12 nursing homes want to work with us. We have to be there to do the testing starting on Tuesday. I'm like, 12 nursing homes, 2 times a week, right? Per location, that we have to be there. I was like, you do realize we don't have enough team, and we don't have that team, and we don't have a traveling team, right? And we have no team right now, in fact. And you told them we're going to be there on Tuesday. I was like, literally, I know I'm really fucking good, but I'll give it my ever living best shot. And I did group interviews, and I refused to take Burger King swabbers. Yeah. I said, we're medical. We're going to stay medical, and we're going to build.
Say no to Burger King swabbers.
Please
Not
say
okay.
no.
Not okay.
It's a little too close. Don't do that.
I'm going to tell you, there was that time we were going through COVID, and my boyfriend lives up in Canada, and in order for me to see him, because luckily Canada allowed, you to put in I think it was you could be considered under friends and family as long as you were in a relationship for a certain amount of time, right?
How do they prove that? They check your Facebook back.
They couldn't. I mean, the truth was they couldn't. But you know what's really funny is, although Canada had that stipulation, the US did not have it back for Canadians. So if you had a Canadian boyfriend or girlfriend,
international dynamic.
It didn't work, right? Again, yes, international dynamics. And so with us, he couldn't come to see me, but I could come to see him. And we had to fill out shit tons of paperwork to do this, right? Yeah. And then next thing you know, there's all these I want to call them kind of roadblocks that hoops you'd have to jump through, right?
I gotta stop you. It sounds, I
call those challenges, Carol.
It sounds like such a guy thing to say. Oh yeah, work says I can't go see you, but you can come see me, is what it sounds like. Even though,
oh my god,
right? This is
okay.
Something like some shady guy would come up there.
I knew it.
It sounds exactly like some lady. Listen to me, ladies, not you two, but those listening right now. If some guy is telling you that and he's not blocked by international borders, That's a red flag. He's full of shit.
Yes.
Get out of there.
Yes.
You're not a parade
Kick
collecting
him to
flags.
the fucking curb, essentially.
That sounds like such a crappy thing to say. Oh yeah, babe, Canadian rolls. I can't go see
No.
you. Come see me.
Lucky
It
him.
was true.
Lucky
It was
him.
true. We were trying, right, really hard because, you know, I knew the guy from my past. He's an acquaintance, but we were looking into like trying to have a real relationship, and everything worked in terms of us talking, right? And we found so many commonalities. So when we decided to do this, I was like, okay, well, obviously we don't know when COVID's going to be over. So let's try to make this work. And I remember, and I'm not shitting you, when we're talking about swabbing, it was horrible. So you had to have like, you had to take like a test 72 hours prior to going, right?
Yeah.
And back then,
the
tests
the
weren't.
labs were backed up.
Thank you.
Started getting backed
So
up. It was
you were like, I was like sweating
crazy.
because I wasn't sure if I was going to get my test in time before I hit the Blaine border.
Like, oh God, I'm not going to get to see my boyfriend.
You know?
And
And by the way, it is 72 hours. I missed it by an hour because no joke. The time that I took the test was it expired before I got to the border, and it was by 1 hour. They ran me through the ringer. They said, where have you been? We don't know if you should be able to cross a border. And I said, I only got out to get gas. That's it. I talked to nobody, said nothing to anybody. I put my card in the slot, filled up my gas tank, and then went, right?
Oh,
Sat there for half an hour. Half an hour sweating bullets, right? So on my way back, that was still, they wouldn't let me back in the States until I took a COVID test right over there. Yeah. And again, I had to find a place that would do it within like 24 hours, right?
And
so
again, labs can't even produce 4-hour turnaround. They couldn't produce. That's
so
what it was
now
like.
we're getting to the really horrible part of the story. I didn't know I was going to get a brain swab, right? So I'm in there and I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be like in the States, you know, they get up there, but they're not like shoving it up to your brain. This woman,
it takes one Burger King swabber.
Holy shit. I looked at her, my eyes start watering, and I mean watering to the point where I am crying.
And then
she, you know what she says to me? She goes, okay, that's one side. We have to do the other. And I'm looking at her like, go fuck yourself. You know? It was horrible. So again, this whole Burger King kind of swabber thing, if you've never been swabbed, you should not be allowed to swab another person.
You totally get exactly what I'm saying. And exactly what I'm saying about how fast the laws were changing. And then they had these bullshit things that then the labs couldn't even like meet that need. And so literally it was like, just like ever changing, like so fast.
They were making it up as they went.
And you just knew what the fuck they were doing. Build around and through and, you know.
Yeah, so we were the guinea pigs in the process that got our brains swabbed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry I didn't know you then. I would have been like, Carol, don't. Like,
I know, but we had to
before this because everybody's working everywhere in the pandemic.
Yeah, it was not a fun like progression during our relationship. I dreaded those swabs because and the time.
I mean, you had to really like somebody to go through the nose.
I didn't even know that if we were going to be a thing at the time. Because
your fault
again,
for falling in love during COVID. COVID Cupid got you.
We fell in love during COVID over conversation, and we weren't even sure that it was going to work. So we gave it a shot. And so that's what I did, was go up there, and I was like, oh God, if this doesn't work out, this is going to be fucking horrific.
Did it work out?
Worked out perfect.
Really?
What the hell, eh?
No, seriously, I found literally the love of my life and my soulmate.
Oh, I love this for you. Good job. Wait to go through COVID.
Yeah. And luckily COVID lifted. Yeah, COVID lifted soon, like soon after. But at that point in time, there was no end to it. We didn't know when it was going to happen. And we hadn't seen each other in years because of it. COVID pretty much shut down the borders. And so when we started talking and having this relationship, it was kind of one of those things that was like
more digital than it was in person.
You know what I loved about it? It was getting to know a person and getting to fall in love with that person without ever having physical contact with them.
Yeah, super
there
smart.
was a beauty in that.
Yeah, agreed. For sure.
Was there like
For
you
you,
like pen
Carol?
pals across the border? Did you write like little love letters and mail them? Could the mail get through?
The
Did
mail
have to be COVID
Come
tested?
on,
Were they rated?
everything's a shit show. Come on.
Have you ever sent anything to Canada? Ever?
I
It's
have
worse
some
than
people I'd
snail
like
mail.
to send to Canada.
Okay. Oh my God.
My daughter rescued a horse that almost went to Canada.
So I was in Bahrain. I was in the Middle East when COVID kicked off. And the quickest route home wasn't like 1 or 2 shots. It was 7 different flights in order for me to get.
Oh yeah.
Because I had to go
because
to
there's
Italy
only certain airports,
and
right?
Spain and Norfolk, and then a different airport in Norfolk to fly to Detroit, and then Minneapolis, and then to Oklahoma City.
It's like one of those, like,
During
where were
COVID.
you at when the pandemic hit? Like, where were you when the pandemic hit?
Where were you when 9/11
What's
happened?
going on
Where were
in Europe?
you when COVID struck? Did you fall in love during? I feel like that's like a legal commercial. Did you fall in love with a Canadian during COVID? If so, you may be,
we should do a
may
reality
be entitled
show.
to compensation.
We should do a reality show on COVID relationships, right? Because everybody was, they were.
I mean, because COVID babies are a thing too.
Catfish,
So there was
catfish
obviously
through the
a
mask,
lot
right?
of that going on.
I fell in love with his
Little
eyes, and then when I
making
finally saw him, he
stuff
had 3
in the
teeth.
COVID world.
Would you stop that, Travis?
What?
God damn.
What?
What do you do?
He said, "Go ahead, repeat."
COVID catfish. Were you COVID catfished? Did you fall in love with their eyes, and when they took their mask off, they only had 3 teeth?
I mean,
people were having dates literally during COVID over Zoom. That's how people were getting
all
to know.
family conversation, everybody, all communication was over Zoom, which is why it catapulted us. Like, that's what they're saying, right? And so the metaverse, they're like, yeah, it's here, like, so fast, and the technology and technological advances because of that. It literally, there's a term they use for it, but like, it literally is like a leap, right? And this one is like the biggest one ever, as far as we know in history, that's advancing technology right now. And so it's a real thing that people should be paying attention to, because it's coming. It's already being built. So yeah, kids really potentially being in a virtual world where it's like all 5 senses,
What's that movie? Ready Player One, where they have the real world, but almost everything takes place in the virtual world. Isn't that Ready Player One? You see that?
I don't know.
There's headsets, and like all this stuff is being developed. Like, it's going to be really highly advanced, extremely highly advanced. And so the developers, even, they're saying like, hey, it's hard to pull myself out of it, right? Like, you get in it and you're building it and you're developing it, and then it's like, whoa, like, I'm like,
reality suddenly seems boring.
Or which is reality.
Oh, you know what's scary about that?
Becoming blurred, right?
Yeah, well, but what's scary is then you have the loss of human connection.
Correct. So that's where we have a lot of, I think, shootings, right? So think about all war games. Like, all these kids are like heavy into war games, and some of them are like raising themselves on it, and it's programming. Like, they're hardwiring in that programming. They're becoming very detached because it's technology. And then on top of it, they're like killing in a very detached fashion all day long and becoming very
Yeah.
Very desensitized. right?
Yeah.
And then depending on what that kid is going through in life and their dynamic and their challenges, then you just add that all into the mix, and that's just a powder keg waiting to happen, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I
No,
mean,
I agree.
I think it
it's
has
a
to do with,
neuroscience
I think it
slash
has to do
like
with attention. They realize, Biden set up gun-free zones in the early 90s. Then we had Columbine, and the people that are getting ignored, not having real conversations or real connected, they realize they can get attention through doing something crazy. They really can have all eyes on them. They can get talked about for weeks and weeks and weeks, and finally get noticed, which is really just a shame.
The cry for help.
it's completely, that's complete and total detached, like totally detached. Like that person's like not of any right mind or body or spirit at that stage of being able to do something like that.
I wonder what their blocked energy would look like if you took a wand on these people.
I mean, wow.
The thing we talked about, shootings a little bit. I love talking about these things, recognizing how just horrific they are. But like I did the Miss Crossroads, Oklahoma, I asked these gals political questions. I set them up to say, hey, how would you handle this? What would you do? How would you prevent school shootings? How did Roe v. Wade affect you? I wanted to know how these ladies were prepared to be questioned with some of these things. And when you talk about things like school shootings, which are just absolutely horrific, what can be done, what can be put in place if people aren't in touch with them real selves, operating as their true selves? They won't have the chance to, not, or they'll never learn how to really express their feelings in themselves if they're not operating as their true selves. And that's really the point of what we're trying to do here. Yeah.
Conscious awareness, again, like if they're only conscious 5% of the time, and then that's what they're hardwiring themselves with and detaching so extremely, to the extreme as well. Like that's to me, that's, like I said, a powder keg. It's a deadly mix. It's not a good thing.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
What would your advice
or the
be?
military or whatever, like I know they design war game systems, right, across military, but when you think about that, like why aren't we creating something that would be the reverse, but that holds equal amount of attention, right, and strengthens the spirit and strengthens the conscious awareness and brings people fully present into their power, and give them that, right? And the news, I'm like, fuck the news. Like people, if you see in the news, I'm like, I don't fucking watch the news. I haven't watched the news in years. Like I can get what I need by skimming through. I don't need to have it in a meditative state in front of a TV set, because it literally puts you in a brainwave pattern that's meditative. So you're just drinking it in literally into your system.
Unfiltered. You're onboarding it. Yeah.
It will, and they not willfully, because they don't know, right? And so this is like educating people about, again, the system, the operating system, their own. Like don't do that to yourself. Because I'm like, you know what? Then I have clients, I love this. They're always like, well, Aileda, I'm a realist, so I have to watch the news or whatever. I have to be informed. And I'm like, if you're a realist, you'll know there's just as many miracles happening in the world, if not more, and more superheroes across the face of this planet. And nobody's broadcasting that.
It's not noteworthy. It's not noteworthy, right? It's not a noteworthy event if it happens all the time, like they do.
Journalism. If it doesn't,
it doesn't bleed, it lead. Yeah.
If it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. If it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. Yeah.
So, it's all shock value. That's what we're based on now. Whatever can, create the most attention, it's a shock value of it now.
Right. I just think it's time to redesign, right?
Absolutely.
So as Americans, I feel like we have a responsibility to redesign our broken systems, and the education system, all of them, right? The things that we're talking about, medical, we touched on. I mean, we've touched on tons.
So what does that look like? What is Aileda's future look like?
It could be cleaned up really quickly. Like our country could be cleaned up very quickly if the right builders and the right architects and the right engineers and the right people come together, and we have some of the most brilliant minds in this country, And I have said recently, it's important because if you think about it, think about like a Noah's Ark. America is essentially like a Noah's Ark because we have all the cultures of the world right here in our nation. That's why it's more challenging, perhaps, to come to agreement or become united on certain things. But the golden thread is the sharing the vulnerable stories. Like if you can come forward and you can share the, oh my, like, I can't believe I survived that, then everybody will find common threads and it will happen super fast, like wildfire. Most important, the most wicked, smart, amazing builders and designers need to just come together on the forefront. And I understand funding is a thing. And my big push is like, let's find that funding. So who are those funders and where are they located? Because there needs to be a call out, because this build out needs to happen yesterday. And it needs to also be vision. But it can be done. And with technology used in the right way, it can be done like with the swiftness, and people can become conscious and present heart coherence really fast with this technology, just like they can go down the rabbit hole of being detached. They can be brought the other direction. And that's what
engaged.
Yeah.
I love it.
Humanity. We are humanity. We are the cultures of the world. So once we do it, we'll take leadership role again, right? Right now, we're not in a leadership role. We call ourselves leaders. We're egotistical. We think that we're leaders in many ways. They followed the patterns and the designs for the systems that we had, and they built out in their own countries, but now they're kicking our ass with their designs. And that should just not be. Like, that should not be.
They used to come here for college and then stay here. Now they're coming here for college and going back and recreating their stuff over there. So you have the platform here. Who do you need? You're calling out to the universe, right? Who do you need? Who are those people that need to come together specifically? Is it certain industries? Is it certain individuals that you know? Which people do you need?
Yeah. So when you think about the word systems, right? System. So think about America. How many times do you use the word system behind something else? Medical system, judicial system, right? There's education system. Like the systems are just one foster care system. Like, our
Why
veterans
calling me out?
are it's the systems, period. Every single, like the lead builders and designers and every single thing that is in a major system throughout this country, those are the people. Those are the people, because it will happen like this with the right technology and the right minds. And build it and they will come, Field of Dreams.
Oh my God, I'm going to kill you because I almost said that and I almost wanted to say it over you. Yeah, build it and they will come, because the truth is, it will. And
well, it's proven. Bitcoin, that's an example.
Yep.
Build it and they will come. And that's that. And then the government is going to chase after and want to come and be a part of or rolled into whatever's working, right? That's really like,
they just want to hang out with the popular peeps.
They just want to hang out with the kids. We're the back of the busters. Let's face it. Like, we know what's up.
We sit back and we watch the shit show in front of us and we go, okay, let's start over.
Yeah,
you're disgruntled, you're disagreeable, you're detached, pirates and tricksters. Come on down.
Yeah. The other thing is that right now we have people who are here from all over the world for various different reasons. And one thing is that when people are coming in from another country, and maybe they're coming in because they're war, right? They've got war going on in their country. And so they're fleeing to escape, not necessarily because they know about America. And so some people come here mindfully because they know what the potential is. And they're like, they know they want that, which is many of like my family was that, I know. And, but not everybody's was, and so that's the other thing to be mindful of is like, how do we educate people about like, what is America? Like, why don't we dig into that a little bit? Like, let's get back to some grassroots of what is America and what does it mean to be an American? And I'm an American female. And so I'm like, I find it vitally important right now to use my voice and exercise the freedoms that, are
we've been given.
Because our military, right, has actually put their foot down and fought for that right. And our Civil War fought for that right. And freedom is a thing. And so we should definitely find out how to get consciously aware, because that is all of our freedom.
Yeah. We
And
should
that's
honor the people that lost their lives for us to have it.
1000%. Nothing but gratitude 1,000 times over. No question. And those systems need to be cleaned the fuck up, because we can do so much better. We can do so much better in every single system that we have. We can redesign and do so much better. Like vision. Let's put some vision into this. And give me the investors. Like, come on. What the fuck are you investing in? Like, who's investing in what? Like, people just need to be conscious and pay attention.
Invest in good things. Do good for the world. Let's see the world, evolve into something that we want it to be, instead of something that we're just accepting.
We shouldn't have, yes, we the people, right? And so it's taking it back to we the people. And so, yeah, our youth wants something better. The global youth wants something better.
They want change.
They don't want wars. They're over it. Like, we're all over it. We're all over destruction. We're all over devastation, right? Like, our planet is very precious, and we better all wake the fuck up to that fact.
So the only way for this to happen, sorry guys, unity. So the opposite of war, unity.
1000%. 1000%. And so
what's the catalyst? How do we awaken people from their 95% autopilot?
Hit them over the head. No, I'm kidding.
the designing of the new, I believe it's the designing of the new systems, right?
We all know Carol chooses violence.
I know. You guys know when you said that.
She's a motocross vixen.
Yeah, right. But how are we going to change the systems? Because currently the people that are in power, that we've elected in power, love the system that's currently created because they benefit from it.
Correct.
So why would they recreate a system that they no longer, or they would believe that they wouldn't be benefiting from?
No, so what I'm saying is build around the outside of all of that. Just build. Like, build. This is where I said, if you build it, they will come. Because all the people will come. Like, it's inevitable. Literally, it's inevitable. You do some of the most badass, kick-ass designs that the world's ever seen, and make them want, hey, I want to know what the hell America's building over there, because now I'm impressed again. Now I'm impressed again, like Japan, Canada, and the Netherlands have designed in their education systems and have had this built for a good chunk of time now, compassion and equality into their education systems. Their scores, their test scores, when we use the comparison charts for, globally that are used and resourced, they're kicking our ass. Our education system hasn't changed in 400 years. It was designed to spit out manufacture workers. So of course, these kids who are diagnosed with ADHD, who I say grew up on technology and not a fucking encyclopedia.
Right.
Computers work faster. Good for them. That's a gift. This country was founded on free thinkers, not let's put them into an education system that spits out manufacturer workers. Fuck off right now. No.
Yeah, it was the Education Act of 1890.
You said I could use the F-bomb, and I mean, I trumped you guys like.
Well, the body of work says we've got more F-bombs per episode than you have in this one. So we're not arguing. We're not competing for most F-bombs, but they're definitely welcome. They're definitely welcome. So we've had a great episode today. You've shared tons with us. Thank you so much. What piece of advice would you leave people, and where can people find you? What one place do you want them to go?
My website, so www.askaileda.com, and I'll put it in the chat so that you have that. And give me the question. What was my question one more time?
Advice to people that are suffering right now. What would you tell them?
my advice is pay attention to your programming, be consciously aware to what you're consuming, the same as the food that you would put in your mouth. And if you're not a person who would pay attention to the food that you put in your mouth, there's a conscious awareness there, right? That's already like a miss. I will say also, pick the top 3 things that you have a tendency to repeat, say words, just 3 words that you have a tendency to repeat, say, that is not empowering. And then take those words and flip them and start neuroplasty on yourself and make them positive and rewrite your programs. So an example, stress, that's one that everybody always says. I say, I don't use it in my vocabulary. I haven't, and I don't even know how long. And I use the word challenge all the time in place of that. Think about how the word stress makes you feel, and think about how you embody that. And it just instantly makes like the cellular structure in your physical system feel like shit. So why are we going to keep saying those things and embodying them when I can say challenge, and all of a sudden it makes me want to go out and be a fucking superhero? Right? No question. Which one should I be choosing? That's what they need to do. And they need to use a little bit of discipline, because just like you said, like riding a bike or driving a car, like pretty soon you wake up one day and then you're just doing it. And guess what? Holy shit, you feel so much better. So much better. Right? Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being our guest today. You can check out everything Aileda has to offer at askaileda.com. I know that I speak for Carol when I say, you fucking rock.
Thanks.
You know, I can speak for myself. You fucking rock.
I can't wait to meet you tomorrow. Yay.
Oh, me too. I can't wait. It's going to be fun.
Thanks so much, you guys. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you for being on.
Thank you so much. Look forward to our conversation next week when we talk to some fucking other person. I don't know.
That's all for this episode of Titan Evolution Podcast. We hope this no-holds-barred conversation opened your eyes on what it takes to live a genuinely happy life according to your own terms. Now that you've treated yourself to such a refreshing discussion, you cannot listen to nonsense content anymore. Be sure not to miss an episode by subscribing to the show at TitanEvolutionPodcast.com. Don't forget to share the word so more people can be enlightened, informed, and entertained. Thank you for listening.